Hi guys, so I'm talking about a fragrance today that is a super hidden gem. Hidden because I don't see it talked about much, and it's a gem because it's really an amazing and relatively unique smelling scent that comes in at a really great value. And I'm really happy to have discovered this scent. It's from a house that many of you guys might not know. I certainly didn't. It's Frank Los Angeles. And this is their number 2 fragrance. I have the 100 ml bottle here, which costs only $130, which is surprising. As I always say, there's no real point in making a distinction between niche and designer scents, because you have designers like the new, Dior Sauvage Elixir, which is like 60 mls for, $150, $60, which is very, very expensive in my opinion. Perhaps the quality, I have not smelled it yet, perhaps the quality matches, the price, but then you have scents like this that are relatively obscure and from a perfume-focused company that costs far less, 100 mls for $130. So we'll just judge the scent based on, for what it is. And I'll tell you if I think it's good quality for the money. And of course, quality to me also includes the sort of artistic quality of the fragrance. So how unique it is, how well blended, and then of course the richness of the ingredients, right? Or how it comes across. I of course don't know how much they spent on these fragrances, so I can only tell you sort of how it feels to me. So the reason that I picked this up, when I stumbled across it, I knew that I had to get it immediately because to me it had one of the most perfect heart note breakdowns I've ever seen for my personal taste. So this has in it plum, cognac, fir balsam, and coffee as the heart notes. And in terms of the official listing, it's those and nothing more. So really the perfect combination. You've got, fruitiness, you've got booze, you've got coffee, which I absolutely love, as a food and drink, and the smell of it. And then fir, which it's not a rarely used note, but I do think that it's relatively unique. It's not used so often as other more common woody notes, and it has an interesting kind of pine-like scent from my experience, and so I think it adds a unique freshness. And so this is a really nice note breakdown, and then you have other notes in the top and the base. And I'll also note in the base it's quite interesting as well. You've got maple, which I've never seen before in any other fragrance. So this fragrance, I believe the perfumer is Bertrand Duchefort. You may or may not know. Let's dive right into the scent. This is a fun one to talk about. And before I tell you sort of the details of the scent, I'll mention it's a great fall scent, but I think also a great signature scent in terms of how easily it wears, how fresh it is. The only thing is that as a signature scent, I do think that it is a little bit too it has a dark edge about it, and it's a little bit mysterious smelling and alluring in that way, but so maybe it might be best suited outside the work setting. Yeah, it smells really nice, but again, it has a very edible kind of quality as well. So when you first spray it, what I think most people will notice the most is the lavender, which is very prominent, and so you get this fougere feel right away. But to me, in contrast to some other reviews I've seen, I don't think that lavender is overly dominant in this scent. Actually, right off the bat, I think I smell like a dark roasted quality in the scent. And of course that's coming from, I think, all the elements in the heart kind of working together, particularly this coffee note and then cognac. Now, the fir is not so obvious. I mean, I think it's confusing because I think the lavender mixing in with the kind of darker cognac and coffee note almost give off this sort of, more woody kind of feel that mixes in with that lavender sharpness. that to me smells a lot like just the fir note itself. So you do get this kind of very sharp cutting quality that I often see in notes like fir, notes like pine, and of course lavender as well. So there is a slight bit of soapiness, not in a powdery way by any means. It's a soapiness that is clean and sharp, and I would best describe it as a cutting kind of quality. But again, from the beginning, from the opening, I'm hit with this kind of dark aspect to the fragrance, which is really interesting. And a few times that I've worn it, I almost got the feel of leather, like a soft and subtle leather, nothing really punchy or abrasive, a really kind of soft leather, even though there is no leather note. And again, I think it's basically this contrast of the fresh aromatic quality of the scent, and then this greenness from the fir, and mixing in with the smoother, darker notes, and giving it an almost kind of dry, toasty quality as well, especially with the coffee. I think altogether that really creates this kind of almost leather-like accord. So in addition to the darkness, there is definitely, I mentioned the lavender is not overly dominant. That's because I think it's well supported by an overall woody structure. So it feels like a woody fragrance, but with these other kind of touches added in. The plum is not overly fruity. And again, it's sort of more, I get more of the cognac kind of smell, but it is a sweeter version. So I think the plum is contributing to this kind of sweetness. Mixes surprisingly well. So it's sort of like a plum drenched in the cognac, and then you add in a bit of a smoky quality, a bit of a roasted quality, almost nutty sometimes, that I get from not just coffee. I mean, I imagine it's at least partly the coffee, but I think just the overall combination of notes, it gives a very kind of mysterious, dark, and slightly dry and dusty quality. And so the image that this evokes, it's interesting. Right away, I imagined a kind of lounge atmosphere, dimly lit lounge, gentleman's lounge, or even a jazz club, very similar to many of the ones that we have here in New York City. This sort of very relaxed, kind of suave feel this has. And I think it's because of this sweetness mixing in with just an overall dark, maybe even a tad bitter touch to the fragrance. And it's almost like, like dark chocolate, of course, is a chocolate itself is a sweet food, but then dark chocolate has that bitterness that rounds everything out, right? If you're not so into sweet things. So it's almost, if I were to compare it to chocolate, like a dark chocolate with, high percentage cacao. Definitely not overly sweet. What's also interesting is this real nice kind of interplay between the fir, right? The fir note is almost like a pine scent, right? So you can imagine it as a very kind of green tree-like, a bit similar to lavender, as I said before, like adding a bit of sharpness and piercing coolness. So you have that, I think, playing with some of the spices that are added in here, like coriander. So you get this almost slight peppery kick as well, which again, I've seen happen with the use of coriander, which I think makes, rounds things out even more, right? So there are really a lot of facets to this fragrance that work well together. You've got this, obviously the lavender, which is a very classic, clean smell to the overall scent, and then a more playful side with some sweetness, like a drunk quality, drunk fruit quality to it with the plum and the cognac, definitely present. The coffee, it's not really like a pure coffee note or smell, more like the roasted essence that you get from coffee, that type of feel, which also is here as well. And again, the fir balsam kind of giving it a bit more woody structure, but also playing with the lavender to support that sharpness, this clean quality. So the overall texture of this fragrance I find interesting because despite the notes like cognac, it doesn't come across as this kind of syrupy scent, which is why I think this manages to be very fresh. Instead, it's more of kind of aromatic piney scent, but still with that boozy smell to it as well. Again, many notes, as I keep mentioning, adding this sort of sharpness, the sharpness that, like when you smell any sort of herb, right? Lavender or like a rosemary, you get this very, in your face kind of cleanness about it. And that's what you get here with fir, lavender, coriander. And by the way, I mean, it seems to perform quite well as well, at least for the first hour or two, projecting very well. So I think that this is a great buy because of the uniqueness. I've not smelled anything quite like it, in the sense that, to sum it up, it's sort of like a fougere because of how aromatic and really ferny it is. In the whole body of the fragrance, but then there's this gourmand-like aspect to it. It's certainly not overly sweet at all. Like I said, not syrupy, still a sharp type of fragrance, but just a touch of plum, a touch of cognac, and then a roast overall toasty, burnt or slightly smoky, you might say, quality to it. That gives this, it almost has this smell that you feel like you could get drunk on because of this sweet kind of dark alcoholic sort of vibe. And again, think of really like a dim lit lounge. That's sort of the best image that captures this type of scent. True gentleman scent, I think. It's classy and mysterious at the same time. It will fall into that kind of category. Again, for work, maybe, I personally prefer scents that are a bit even more bright and clean. This one tends to go in a darker direction, so more a playful, kind of scent for the more mature guy. So real great fragrance. Hope you guys get to try it out, and I'll see you in the next reviews. Bye.